A few years ago, some researchers looked at the capillary beds of reindeer noses, and there was a small hoo-ha about how Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer's nose glows red due to the presence of blood. What was an interesting story about heat exchange became silly nonsense because, sorry to burst your bubble, but blood doesn't glow, so what's up with that, hey? The only reasonable answer is that in young Rudolph there is red fluorescent protein expression. The way this happened is pretty clear. Researchers working on the Tamar wallaby were developing transgenic RFP expressing wallabies. Now, we never found definitive proof of what exactly happened through the Royal Commission, but one student suggested a fucking magpie stole the loaded microinjector, which is fucking ridiculous but totally believable within the bounds of magpie behaviour. So this magpie fucked off with the loaded microinjector, and then somehow it ended up injecting the RFP expression construct into one of Santa's 6 white boomers he uses for the Australian run, which you can learn about in the song written by Hatsune Miku. From here, a mosquito sucked up the injectate and transferred it to one of the reindeers during the changeover, where it was miraculously stored and protected in the fat reserves. Then, at the end of September during the rutting season when the reindeer carrying the RFP expression construct lost a lot of its fat reserves, a mosquito which was buzzing around well outside of its season sucked up the injectate. Now, this mosquito was also carrying an unidentified lentivirus, which took up the RFP expression construct somehow. So when this mosquito then happened to suck the blood of Rudolph's mother after conception of our famous young reindeer, the lentivirus, now acting as a vector for RFP expression, found its way into the developing fetus of Rudolph, which inserted the RFP expression gene in cells that would eventually become the nose. But why his nose glows red is actually a really boring question, because I've given the entire history of how it happened. However, when watching Rankin and Bass's 1964 TV special, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, a different question comes to mind. Namely, is anyone else feeling that the vibes are way off in this movie? It's not just me, right? It's fucking weird. The vibes being off is down to a couple of problems. Why do any of the reindeer or Santa care about Rudolph's red nose? Why does puberty make Rudolph seek to return to Christmastown? What on earth is the timeline for this fucking insanity? Why can Rudolph just go back to Christmastown with no problem? Was the abominable snowman keeping his family and Fly Girl as pets or something for the past months? All of this isn't just CinemaSins nonsense, it's full-blown actual nonsense. But understanding the wackiness of this classic family show, we don't really need to think about why Rudolph is excluded from society.
Stop calling me names! Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer!
Donner, you should be ashamed of yourself. What a pity. He had a nice takeoff, too.
But how it affects him, and then how he is subsequently accepted back. Now, Rudolph's exclusion is a loss of his reindeer identity.
Great bouncing iceberg.
And it's almost complete among denizens of Christmastown.
Back to practice. Oh, no, not you. You better go home with your folks. From now on, gang, we won't let Rudolph join in any reindeer games, right?
Apart from a doe perplexingly called Clarice or something, and is very clearly a full-grown adult woman.
There's always tomorrow for dreams to come true.
The almost complete exclusion from society is also just as completely meaningless, but it is the impetus for his catabasis to Misfit Island. I guess that makes Yukon Cornelius the psychopomp, and my god, what a psychopomp he is.
You so fucking precious when you smile. Hit it from the back and drive you wild. Girl, I lose myself up in those eyes.
Where in the context of his exclusion and the Misfits song, we learn something a little bit wacky. For these characters, value is only derived from their capacity to either be directly consumed or facilitate that consumption, and Christmas itself is synonymous with consumption. A reindeer's value is in its ability to pull Santa's sleigh, as evidenced by Santa serendipitously finding Rudolph upon his return, and only mentioned that he'd been gone for months as a segue to complaining that Rudolph's dad won't be able to pull his sleigh. So having been cut off from sleigh pulling, Rudolph is cut off from reindeerhood. But in returning to Christmastown, while excluded from reindeerhood, Rudolph has undergone an anabatic puberty, where perhaps he has embraced his transgressive identity, and even though the exclusion is callously maintained by Mrs. Feeder Claus's feedee,
Papa, you haven't touched a morsel. I'll have to take this suit in. Eat.
I'm busy, Mama. It's almost Christmas.
Whoever heard of a skinny Santa? Eat. Eat.
we see Rudolph choose to exist outside the normal boundaries placed on reindeer by having a red nose. But for this transgression, Rudolph fucking dies! The question then is, why is Rudolph accepted back? And the answer is because of an exceptional feat. He can't just be a reindeer with a shiny red nose that one may even suggest glows. We also have to pretend he had some input in helping
to get the women back to Christmas Town.
And so he is tacitly allowed to return. But it takes living out the conservative fantasy of ending the war on Christmas to be fully returned to reindeerhood,
Christmas is going to be cancelled.
when his utility can be proven in providing vision.
That nose of yours, that nose, that beautiful, wonderful nose.
To see through the snowstorm sent by those dastardly lefties at the Bureau of Meteorology. And so his glowing red nose doesn't enter normalcy through acceptance, but through exploitation for consumption, with the eternal words ringing out for generations.
Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight?
It will be an honor, sir.
Chills. Absolute chills. And as young Rudolph goes down in history, we understand that there has been an apotheotic return to the status quo, as Rudolph becomes the ideal facilitator of consumption. Merry Christmas. But what's up with the fucking siren that can be heard whenever Rudolph's nose glows?
Rudolph, please, could you tone it down a bit?
There must be more going on than what the Royal Commission found in Rudolph's case. Well, that noise sucks, so we can ignore it.
Great bouncing iceberg.
And anyway, its presence makes it obvious why he was ostracized and actually makes it pretty reasonable.